What I'm going to look at is 6 visions of the future, and very briefly, obviously. One is the law. Second is our sons. Third is fathers. Fourth is communication. And fifth is schools, and 6 universities. So let me start with that. The law. I think first of all, I'm really impressed with what's happening here in Australia with men's work. It really gives me enormous inspiration, especially in comparison to a lot of the resistance in the United States. And you've started in a really good place with the law. There's sort of a dichotomy, a cognitive dissonance built into the law. And you started with the good part of the cognitive dissonance. One part of the cognitive dissonance is that we all believe in equality. So we can create a Gender Equality Act, as you've done here in Australia, and catering to the one part of the cognitive dissonance that works in our favor, which is that we believe in equality. The other part of the cognitive dissonance is that we don't believe in equality. That is, we don't believe in equality when it comes to women and men. We believe, as Richard pointed out, I think it's Richard Fletcher pointed out, that when we pass a law about paternity leave, that we have a paternity leave for 2 weeks for men and 24 weeks for women. And if that would be like having STEM professions, the science, technology, engineering, and math professions, and saying we believe in equality, and therefore we're going to have 1/13 of those professionals be women, and be men. Be women, but instead with our approach to equality in the STEM professions, we create scholarships for women to enter the STEM professions in equal numbers, as to the degree that we can get them to do that. But we're not doing that same type of affirmative action outreach and saying, here are scholarships for men, here are financing for men above and beyond what we do for women, because we want to get until we get equal numbers of men into the fathering role. We think of equality, we think of ourselves as being progressive by doing 1/13 of the work. And that's because underneath all of it, we believe that women have the problems and men don't, and we believe that because we believe that underneath it all, we had a patriarchal world in which men made the rules to benefit men at the expense of women, and therefore what the really equality is about is bringing women up to where men are. We don't realize that our history was not about patriarchy, it was about survival being the dominant force. The need for men and women to survive, and men and women work together and sacrifice together. Women sacrificed their lives oftentimes raising children, men sacrificed their lives raising money. And our parents didn't have rights, they had obligations and responsibilities. And we freed each other to have both, we freed each other to sort of look at what women's challenge was to not have an equal opportunity in the world outside the home. We haven't freed ourselves to look at equally the degree to which it has been harmful for all of us, for men to not have equal responsibility, equal opportunities, equal encouragement for their role inside the home. And that's creating part of the tragedy that we're seeing today. Second, our sons. When you speak, what more than anything else we have to understand is that every society that has survived based on its ability to convince its sons to be disposable. Disposable in war, disposable in work, and because many of the men who died in war were dads, and many of the men who died in our coal mines and our oil rigs and construction sites were dads, indirectly therefore disposable as dads. And to think of disposability as power, disposability to learn that your life, that you will be called a hero if you take a risk of your life, that is, if you die, is to invest in a society's psychology in which a society believes that we, on the one hand, want to have our sons be healthy, but on the other hand, we're training them for football and activities that were based on the training of our sons to be disposable. And disposability is not my definition of power. But we trained men to define power as feeling obligated to earn money somebody else spent while we died sooner. And until we recognize that no woman would be stupid enough to define that as power, feeling obligated to earn money that somebody else spent while she died sooner, until we question that definition of power, we will always have the law having gender equality by law, but not gender equality in detail. And the devil, or if you will, the angel, is in the detail. And so that difference between our cognitive dissonance theory of equality on the one hand and the actual practice of it throughout the government, not by the people who hold the positions, but rather by the understanding what the male role is and needs to be and how important it is, and integrating that into our law as well. Our sons, our second point. Our sons are so crucial because women don't fall in love with men who talk about their problems. From a woman's perspective, a man who talks about his problems is a man who is a whining man. Women have been trained to fall in love with alpha men, not whining men. And so the mere articulation of our problems by ourselves is like fingernails on a chalkboard to most women's ears. It's very hard to take in. Women are biologically programmed to look to men to be protectors. And while most women also have another brain that works against that and says, I need to protect myself, she's also not easily emotionally and physically attracted to a man who's talking about the problems that he has. It indicates at a very deep level she doesn't have a real man there. But women have another instinct, and that is the instinct of protecting who? Their children. And when we talk about a boy's problems, her son's problems, women's eyes dilate, moms move forward, they're interested in knowing more about their son's problems. And their nurturing, their empathy, their involvement, their enthusiasm completely awakens. And so if we want to move forward, we have to move our discussion forward through the understanding and the communication about what is happening to our sons, why our sons are in crisis, why our sons are so much more likely to be addicted to video games, why they're so much more likely to be on ADHD, what is happening about phthalates in waters that are leaching, that are creating hormones that mimic estrogen, that create an increase in our gender gap between our women, our daughters and our sons. What's happening with video game access to, not video games, but video pornography, and why that is addicting, what's happening to our sons' brains as we look at the video pornography. These are things that interest every mother. And mothers who have sons with a failure to launch are fascinated to know about that. So we need to move the dialogue of men's issues through boys' issues, which can be heard by women, and no change in gender will occur unless women are on board and women are helping to lead that process. Next is fathers. The reason the paternity leave issue is so crucial is because, and we see all around us in social services, as we were talking about before with David, and he was talking about how social services had only about 95% women. When you have women predominantly involved with children, it is the same thing as men being predominantly involved in the government or a corporation, but in reverse. We have a value system. Men and women have tensions in our value systems, a lot of overlap, but a lot of differences as well. And when children are being raised, moms are far more likely to be protective of their children, caring of their children, and nurturing of their children. Dads are more likely to say, be tough love oriented with their children. When the child fails and falls down on a ski slope, come on, get up and do it again. And the mothers feel like you're pushing the child too fast. Moms are more likely to set boundaries. Dads are more likely to enforce the boundaries. And when you have, what's the better answer? The best answer is checks and balances. But checks and balances is different than hierarchy. We have in the family system, to a large degree, hierarchy, where especially in families with divorce, the mother oftentimes will say, this is the way it should be, and if it isn't this way, you're not protecting the child enough. And so the mother is honestly and genuinely fearful that the father will be involved in a way with the children that is not protector-oriented. And so we have to, so unless there is equality between men's and women's parenting, the hierarchical arrangement in which the father has to get permission from the mother to do this, and the mother looks down and says, here's what you need to do and here's what you need not to do, because otherwise if you don't do it this way, you will not be seen by me as a good father, and therefore I'll fight you in court if we have a divorce about that. Or I just will move you out of equality in the family. And what in an intact family, when a father is out of equal mode, he then moves into focusing on his work, which he knows makes mom happy because he produces more income, but it doesn't do the best thing for the children. Checks and balances in running a family are like checks and balances in government. We may hate the other side, but in fact we do a better job when we have an equal balance between both the mother and the father. Next, communication. The single biggest problem among human beings is that our Achilles heel is our inability to handle personal criticism from a loved one without becoming defensive. And so if we were to make more progress in the next years than in any other single area, it would be looking at the way to be able to work around our biological propensity to respond defensively to criticism and learn an alternative to that and have that taught in our grammar schools. Thank you.